Hi, good to see you. A resentful son was happy to receive his mother's horrible diagnosis 2 days later. He couldn't believe when he received the news that he would need his mother to save him. Lorenzo, a rich and influential man, walked through the lobby of his imposing office. It was a vast space and luxurious, reflecting the success he had achieved over the years. The atmosphere was tense. He had just lost $1 million contract due to events outside his control. How could they let this slip away? No one here understands what is at stake, Lorenzo thought as he was breathing deeply, trying to maintain his composure. He stopped for a moment in front of a huge floor-to-ceiling window and looked at the city below. His eyes landed on a boy walking hand in hand with his mother on the sidewalk. The sight unleashed a wave of bitterness and resentment that she was trying to suppress. For years, memories of her difficult childhood and the abandonment she suffered began to resurface, bringing to the surface emotions that she preferred to keep buried. She left me alone in the world. Why wasn't I enough for her? He thought, clenching his fists. All the success I have today is proof that I don't need anyone, especially her, he thought as he watched the scene. The image of the happy child with his mother contrasted brutally with his own. Memories of loneliness and pain. His mother had abandoned him when he was just a child, leaving him an emotional scar that never fully healed. She just left without an explanation, without a goodbye. How can someone do that to their own child? The memories were mixed with the feelings of anger and resentment that he was trying unsuccessfully to bury in the back of his mind. The phone on his desk rang, interrupting his thoughts. Lorenzo sighed, reluctant to leave the window and his dark thoughts. He walked slowly to his desk and answered the phone. The phone was his secretary, Diana. Lorenzo, I need to talk to you immediately. I have very serious news. Can I come into your office to talk? She asked. From the other side of the line, Lorenzo allowed the secretary's entrance, hoping she wouldn't bring news so bad it would make his day even worse. Lorenzo felt the tension rising. What else could go wrong today? How many problems will I have today? He thought as he adjusted his posture at his mahogany desk. I hope this isn't really important, because my day is already bad enough. His mind was still disturbed by memories of his childhood and by the recent loss of the contract, and he had no patience for more problems. As soon as Diana entered his office, Lorenzo noticed the serious expression on his secretary's face. Diana was a woman in her years, always professional and efficient, but now there was something in her look that caused him a pang of worry. Diana, what is so important that he couldn't wait? What happened? He asked, he trying to hide the irritation in his voice. Diana hesitated for a moment, visibly uncomfortable. I need to get straight to the point. I know you don't like to talk about this topic, but this time it's a non-important one. I got a call from the hospital. It's about your mother. Biological Julieta is seriously ill and will hardly have a chance of recovery, she said, carefully observing Lorenzo's reaction. Suddenly a bitter smile appeared on the millionaire's face. Then finally, she is paying for everything. She believes that she can simply reappear in my life on her deathbed. After everything he did to me, this is not going to change anything I went through, he thought, full of resentment and bitterness. Diana watched Lorenzo carefully, waiting for him to say something, but he just turned towards the window. Lost in his thoughts again. I'm not going to let the past control me. She doesn't deserve my attention, much less my sorry, he thought, trying to convince himself before getting seriously ill. Julieta left a letter for you. She wanted you to read it. At least that was what it was. What the doctor on the other end of the line said that your mother asked me to tell you about this. It seems important, Diana continued, trying to hide her concern with Lorenzo's reaction. However, all the boss did was let out a short laugh and disdainful. Why would I read something she wrote? She already did enough by abandoning me. I don't think anything she can say now has any value to me. Her words are as empty as the promises she will never keep, he said, his voice full of bitterness as he saw that Lorenzo he had nothing more to say. Diana left the office, leaving Lorenzo lost in thought. He stood looking at the city with a vacant look. The news that his mother was dying did not affect him in the way it might affect another person. Instead, brought her a strange feeling of satisfaction. She deserves this for what she did to me. Finally, fate is correcting a mistake that left a deep scar on me. She understands how much she hurt me, he thought. Lorenzo knew that this news could affect his emotions, but I was determined not to let that happen. Nothing will break me down. I am Lorenzo, a man who built his own destiny without the help of anyone. I have more important things to attend to than the words of a woman who abandoned me so long ago when Julieta needed her more. an older woman who carried in her brown eyes the depth of a life marked by difficult decisions and deep regrets. Her once vibrant face now showed the signs of the fight against an implacable illness. Each wrinkle told a story of pain and resilience, reflecting the years of sacrifice and unrequited love. Abandoning her son was the most painful decision she had made. Now on the brink of death, she was consumed by the desire to ask for forgiveness and reconnect with him. Son that she loved more than her own life. Now she was desperately trying to find free treatment. Every day that passed, she felt her strength diminish and the urgency in her mind increased. Sitting on a hospital bed, holding a pamphlet with information about clinics and treatments. How can I get help without money? My options are running out quickly, she thought, feeling the weight of hopelessness fall on her. Determined to do something, Julieta decided it was time to try to reconnect with Lorenzo. Although she knew that the chances were slim, she took the phone with trembling hands and dialed his office number. I need to talk to him. I need to at least try to apologize. She thought, her heart tight with anxiety. When they answered the call, she heard the voice of her son's secretary. Can I speak with Lorenzo? Please, it's urgent. I'm his mother and I want to talk to him as soon as possible, Julieta asked with a weak but desperate voice. Diana, knowing the situation, tried to be kind but firm. I'm sorry, Mrs. Julieta, but Lorenzo doesn't want to see you, and he asked not to be bothered with this. He doesn't want to hear from you now, and I can't force him to change his mind, Diana responded, feeling the weight of the words he was transmitting. Julieta felt a blow to her heart, but she didn't give up. Please, tell him I'm very sorry. I would have liked to do things differently. Please tell him I love him, even if he doesn't want to listen to me. If you can help me, I asked a friend to leave my letter in the office mailbox. Deliver it, it's urgent, she said with tears in her eyes. Devastated, Julieta hung up the phone, feeling weaker than ever. She knew she couldn't give up, even though Lorenzo refused to listen to her. I need to find a way to prolong my life. I need more time to try to correct my mistakes, she thought, with her mind spinning in search of a solution. Every second that passed was a painful reminder of her condition during the day in the hospital. Julieta received a visit from an old friend, Ricardo, who used to be the only person who visited her when she entered the hospital. Ricardo approached the room and, sensing Julieta's weakened state, asked what was happening. Julieta, you look so weak. What did the doctors say? How can I help you? He asked, the concern evident in his voice. I'm seriously ill, Ricardo. I don't have much time, and I'm trying to find a solution. But I have no hope of really getting better. Now I just want to talk to my son to apologize and correct my mistakes, she responded, her voice filled with emotion. Ricardo, sensitized by the Julieta's situation, decided to share some information that could be useful. I know a clinic that could help you. They have advanced treatments, but they are extremely expensive, he said, offering a faint hope. I would like to have a single chance to stay alive to repair my mistakes, but I don't have money, he thought. She was sad to know that her chances were slim. She was determined to try anything to prolong her life a little longer, but she needed an alternative that wasn't expensive. Thank you for letting me know. I don't have one. Conditions to pay for an expensive treatment, but I appreciate that you try to help me. I will find a way to fix everything even if I don't have the treatment, she responded, feeling cornered by the circumstances while she thought about Ricardo's words. Julieta couldn't help but feel a mixture of hope and despair. If I managed to get to that clinic, maybe they could help me. But where am I going to find the money to pay that? Thought the mind, agitated by plans and possibilities. Knew that I needed to act quickly, but the options were limited and time was against her. Julieta spent the rest of the day trying to contact charity organizations and healthcare services, but the results were discouraging. Every door seems to be closed to me. What else can I do? I can't just give up, not after having found a possible solution, she thought, frustration growing inside her. Desperate, Julieta called Ricardo to ask for more details about the clinic. Ricardo, can you give me more information about that clinic? Maybe I can find a way to ask for help from a charity that covers the treatment. I want to try all the possibilities, she said, trying to keep hope alive. Of course, Julieta. I will give you all the details. Who knows, with some help, you can get a place there, he answered, wanting to help. Her friend, however, while Ricardo was explaining the details, Julieta realized that the amount needed was much larger than she could imagine. This is much more expensive than I thought. I don't know how I'm going to get it. This in time, but I need to try. I can't give up now, she thought, feeling even more desperate as night fell. Julieta lay down in her hospital bed exhausted and worried. I need a solution. I need a miracle. If Lorenzo would at least listen to me, maybe I could die in peace, but I know he doesn't want to know anything about me, she thought as she closed her eyes, hoping that the next day would bring some answer. With those thoughts, Julieta fell asleep, still bubbling with plans and tenuous hopes. She knew that the time was running out, but she couldn't give up. I'll find a way. I need to believe there's still hope, she thought as sleep finally took over her. The next day, Lorenzo sat in his leather chair in the office, staring at the letter the secretary had brought him. Diana had picked up the letter in the office mailbox, as requested by Julieta. Curiosity and resentment fought within Lorenzo. Upon seeing the letter, why should he read what she wrote? Already, it was enough to be abandoned by her. Her words did not. They have value to me, he thought, trying to suppress any feeling of vulnerability with a hard expression. Lorenzo stood up and walked to the fireplace in the corner of the office. He held the letter tightly, as if pressing it could erase the painful memories. This letter is not going to change anything. What happened? She made her choices and I made mine. I don't need your apology, he muttered, trying to convince himself as he threw the envelope into the flames. The flames quickly engulfed the letter, turning the paper into ashes. Lorenzo watched the unspoken words be consumed by the fire, feeling a mixture of relief and confusion. Goodbye, past. Burning this letter is like burning the ties that bind me to that pain. One day I will know what was written, he thought. Although he could not get rid of the feeling of loss as the last embers died down, Lorenzo felt a slight tightening in his chest and a sudden dizziness. It must be stress. I've been under a lot of pressure lately. I need to concentrate on work and leave this behind, he thought, ignoring the discomfort. Tried to convince himself that the symptoms were trivial, but an internal voice persisted, suggesting that something more serious could be happening. In the days that followed, Lorenzo began to feel other strange symptoms. Intense fatigue, headaches, and a constant feeling of weakness accompanied him. He struggled to maintain his routine, but every day seemed more challenging. This is not normal. I need to see a doctor, but what could be wrong with me? I have never felt like this before, he thought, finally accepting that he couldn't continuing to ignore his health. Lorenzo made an appointment with his trusted doctor and underwent a series of tests. Sitting in the waiting room, reflecting on the last few weeks, will I be paying a price for something I did? Or is this just another test I need to pass? No, I can let this break me down. I have to be strong, he thought, trying to stay calm while waiting for the results. When the doctor entered the room with a serious expression, Lorenzo felt a chill run down his spine. Lorenzo, your tests showed some abnormalities. We need to investigate further. We will need a few more days to have a definitive answer, but I want you to know that we are doing everything we can, said the doctor, placing the results on the table. Lorenzo nodded, trying to process the information. Anomalies? What does that mean? How long will I have to wait for an answer? I have a lot of things to resolve and I can't afford to be sick, he asked, the anxiety evident in his voice. I understand your concern, Lorenzo. We will do our best to speed up this process. I want you to rest and take care of yourself so much. It's important that you don't stress out even more, the doctor responded, trying to reassure him. Lorenzo left the doctor's office with his head full of unanswered questions. What's happening with me? Is it something serious? Why is this happening now just when I'm trying to move forward? I need to stay strong, but how can I do it without knowing that it is wrong? He thought, feeling the weight of uncertainty. When he returned home, Lorenzo sat down in the living room armchair and closed the door, eyes trying to find a moment of peace in the midst of the chaos that his life had become. Burning that letter was an attempt to leave the past behind, but now it seems that I am being dragged back. In one day, I will truly be able to escape the shadows of my past, he thought, reflecting on the decisions he had made in the days that followed. Julieta's health worsened. Every day, the intense pain and increasing weakness made it impossible for her to remain conscious. She continued to be hospitalized in a public hospital where resources were limited and care was precarious, feeling increasingly vulnerable. I tried to maintain hope, but the reality was hard. I will be able to get out of here alive. I need more time. One more chance to reconcile with Lorenzo, I thought as I observed the constant movement of doctors and nurses around him. Lorenzo, for his part, continued to deal with his own symptoms that seemed to worsen the constant fatigue and pain that made it difficult to maintain the frenetic pace of his work. I can't afford to be sick now. There's a lot at stake. I need to continue. I need to show that I'm strong, that I can deal with anything, he thought, Ignoring the signals his body was sending him despite his concerns with his own health, Lorenzo couldn't push away the uncomfortable feeling that something else was wrong. The memories of the letter he burned still haunted him, and he couldn't help but wonder if he had made the right decision. Should he have read it, there might be something important in there, but what's done is done. I need to move on, he thought as he tried to concentrate on the piles of documents on his desk. Diana entered Lorenzo's office with a worried expression. Lorenzo, I have some news that you need to hear. Your mother is still hospitalized in a public hospital. Her situation is critical, and the resources there are very limited. They don't have how to save her in that hospital. If you used your resources, maybe she would have a chance, said Diana. Watching Lorenzo's reaction, he stayed in shock, silent for a moment, processing the information. Then she is really at the end, he thought, feeling a mix of relief and guilt. He should do something, but what could he do now? She asked for my help. ABA wonders to himself, trying to hide his own vulnerability. Lorenzo responded coldly, she made her choices. I have no responsibility for that. I can't just drop everything I'm doing to run after someone who abandoned me. Where was she when I was a kid and I got sick? Where I was when I broke my arm, when I was hospitalized as a child. She needs to deal with the consequences of her decisions, he said, although his words sounded empty even to him. Even as he said that, Lorenzo felt a growing pain in his chest, not just physical but emotional. I'm being fair. I can live with this decision. I cannot falter now. I need to stay firm, I thought, trying to push away the conflicting feelings. Lorenzo's nights began to become sleepless. Worry and guilt consumed him. What is happening now? Everything seems to fall apart at the same time. I need answers, but it seems that I am trapped in an endless cycle of uncertainties and doubts, I thought. Turning in the bed in the hospital, Juliet felt her strength fading, but her fighting spirit was still intact. I need to resist. I need to find a way to get out of here and make peace with my son. I can't give up now. He needs to know the truth, she thought, even as the pain threatened to overtake her. The days passed slowly for both of us, each fighting his own demons. Lorenzo still refusing to admit the seriousness of his condition. He immersed himself in work as a form of distraction. If I continue focused, maybe things will be resolved. But, and my mother, what else can I do? I have to continue. Go ahead. She cannot appear out of nowhere in my life as if nothing had happened, I thought, although I knew deep down that I was only postponing the inevitable. Meanwhile, Diana, worried about Lorenzo's condition, tried to convince him to take better care of himself. Lorenzo, you can't continue like this. You need to take care of yourself. You can't continue working if you're not well, she said with a voice full of genuine concern. Lorenzo, however, remained stubborn. I'm fine, Diana. I just need a little more time. I'm going to get over this. I can't allow myself to falter now. I have responsibilities, he said, more to himself than to her. So the days dragged on, each one facing its own challenges, until finally Lorenzo realized that something more serious was happening to him. This can't just be stress, he thought, feeling a new wave of dizziness. I need to face reality, no matter how difficult it may be. The news about Julietta's hospitalization would not leave his head. No matter how much he tried to ignore it, the weight of guilt was beginning to make itself felt. She is there alone and sick. She deserves to pass through. Because of this, I can continue to convince myself that I have no responsibility. Maybe I should do something, even if she doesn't deserve it, he thought. As remorse slowly seeped into his heart, he stood up abruptly and began to walk. Walking from one place to another, the decision I needed to make was not easy. I can pay for her treatment, but I don't want her to know it was me. I don't want to deal with the emotional implications of this. If I don't do anything, I can live with this guilt, he thought, trying to rationalize his feelings. After reflecting for a long time, Lorenzo finally decided to pick up the phone and call a renowned private hospital in the city. Hello, I need to transfer a patient to a private hospital. She is in a public hospital in this moment and needs adequate treatment. Her name is Julieta, and her condition is critical. I want her to receive the best possible treatment, but this must be done anonymously. I will cover all the expenses, but no one should know that it was me, she said, trying to keep her voice firm in the decision. Lorenzo brought her a strange relief, but also a new set of worries. She will understand what I'm trying to do. She will think it's just a stroke of luck. It doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm doing it right, even though she never did. No, she thought as she tried to concentrate again on work at the public hospital. Julieta was getting weaker and weaker, but was still fighting to survive. When the medical team came into her room with the news of her transfer, she was confused. What is happening? Why are they transferring me? Who would do this for me? She asked, her voice weak and full of uncertainty. We received orders to transfer her to a private hospital. She will receive better treatment there according to the information I received. The costs of all the treatment has been paid for anonymously, but it seems that someone cares a lot about you, said the doctor, trying to comfort Julieta. Couldn't believe what she was hearing. Her heart was beating hard in her chest. She couldn't stop hoping, even though the possibility was small, if anyone cared about her. It must be that he did this, but he said he didn't want to know anything about me. Whoever it is, I'm eternally grateful, she thought as she was carried on a stretcher towards the ambulance. When Julieta arrived at the new hospital, she was immediately taken to the ICU. The doctors quickly assessed her condition and determined that urgent surgery was necessary. We need to operate on her immediately. She will not survive without this intervention. We will do everything we can to save her, said the head surgeon, preparing the team for the operation. Lorenzo back in her office. You couldn't concentrate. Doubt and remorse continued to torment you. She is being prepared for urgent surgery. We did what she asked and she is receiving the best care possible, said the voice on the other end of the line. We will keep you informed of the progress. As he hung up the phone, Lorenzo felt a lump in his throat. I hope she can get through this. I hope I made the right decision despite everything my mother did to me. I did something to help her, even though she never knows it was me. I did what I could to help her, he thought, feeling more vulnerable than ever. Julieta's surgery began and Lorenzo anxiously awaited news on the phone. Every minute seemed like an eternity, and he couldn't get rid of the feeling of guilt. If something goes wrong, how will I live with myself? I did this for her, but also for myself, to ease my conscience. Please, let everything go well, I reflected while looking at the clock incessantly. The hours passed slowly and Lorenzo could barely breathe from so much tension. How could I get to this point? How life got so complicated. No matter what happens, I need to keep my heart away from all this. I can't get emotionally involved in all this, I thought, feeling trapped in a whirlwind of emotions. Finally, the phone rang again. It was the hospital. Sir, Julieta's surgery was a success, but she is still in critical condition. We need to monitor her closely in the next few hours. We will do everything possible to guarantee her recovery, said the doctor. Lorenzo breathed a sigh of relief. But I knew the battle was far from over. Thank you, doctor. Please continue to do the best you can. Stay informed about everything that happens and make it clear to the entire health team that everything must be done correctly. Anonymous responded, trying to keep her voice steady as she hung up the phone. Lorenzo felt a wave of mixed emotions. She managed to survive the surgery, but what's next? She will recover completely. I need to be prepared for whatever comes, even if she never knows about my involvement, she thought, knowing that there was still a lot what to face. Julieta, after the successful surgery, began to slowly recover in the hospital. She received intensive care, and each day brought a small progress. I am still here. Someone somewhere me gave him a second chance. I hope to be able to tell Lorenzo that I love him, even though he never wants to see me. He will have read the letter, she thought, feeling grateful for the opportunity to maybe reconnect with Lorenzo. Meanwhile, Lorenzo was dealing with his own health problems. Every hour he felt more weakened. He insisted on work, but one day he felt bad in his office and had to go to the hospital. After days of waiting, the results of his tests finally arrived. He went to the doctor's office, feeling a mix of anxiety and determination. I need to know what is happening with me. I can't continue like this, he thought, while waiting to be called. When he entered the office, the doctor greeted him with a serious expression. Lorenzo, the results of your tests show that you have a rare genetic condition that is affecting your immune system. We need to act quickly. There is only one chance of treatment, but we need a compatible donor, someone from your family. It may be the only key to saving you, explained the doctor while showing the graphs and the detailed reports. Lorenzo felt a chill hearing those words. A compatible donor, someone in my family, my mother Julieta. She may be my only hope. How will I ask her for help? After all, he thought, trying to process the information. The doctor's words echoed in his mind, bringing with it a new layer of distress. The doctor continued to emphasize the urgency of the situation. We need to examine your relatives to find a compatible donor as soon as possible. You mentioned that your mother is alive, right? She may be our best chance. Time is crucial here. Lorenzo counts every day. Looking directly at Lorenzo, Lorenzo left the office in a state of shock. My own mother, the woman I tried so hard to forget, could be my salvation. But how can I ask this of her? I can't. Not after everything that happened. I will die with dignity. I will not ask for her help. She rejected me, he thought, walking down the hospital hallway. The revelation that his mother could be the key to his cure left him devastated. He knew he needed to make a decision, but the idea of asking Julieta for help was almost unbearable. Determined to maintain his pride and independence, Lorenzo chose to keep his condition a secret. I can't let her know. I can't show myself as weak. I need to find another way. I can't depend on her, he thought as he left the room. Hospital Lorenzo's decision was made, but the weight of the truth consumed him. He knew he was risking his own life, but the idea of depending on Julieta was something he could not accept in the following days. Lorenzo tried to continue with his routine, but the symptoms of his illness were becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. I need to find another solution. There must be a way. I can't give in. I can't ask her for help, he thought as he tried to concentrate on work. Every day became like a day. Greater struggle, and the truth she hid became an increasingly heavier burden. While Julieta recovered, Lorenzo stayed away, watching from afar. She is getting stronger. Maybe she can save herself without knowing that I need her too. I did what I could to help her anonymously. That should be enough, I thought, trying to find comfort in her decision. Lorenzo's condition continued to deteriorate, and he knew that time was running out. I need to keep my secret. I can't let her know. I have to be strong for myself, even if it means sacrificing my own life, I thought, fighting the pain and fear. The next day, Lorenzo was in the office trying to concentrate on his growing pile of documents, but the weakness in her body was relentless. She felt dizziness and a persistent pain in her chest, but it refused to give in. I can't stop now. There is still so much to do, she thought, trying hard to maintain her composure. However, suddenly, she felt an intense dizziness and fell to the ground unconscious. Diana, who he was passing through the hallway, he heard the sound of the fall and ran to Lorenzo's office. When he found him passed out, he immediately called an ambulance. Please come quickly, my boss fainted and is unconscious. I don't know what happened, but he needs urgent help, he exclaimed, trying to remain calm while waiting for the paramedics to arrive. Lorenzo was rushed to the hospital, the same hospital where his mother Julieta was hospitalized. The doctors quickly began to work to stabilize him while Diana anxiously awaited news. Finally, the trusted Dr. Lorenzo was notified and immediately went to the hospital to treat his patient. When he approached Diana, his face had a serious expression. His condition was critical. We need a compatible donor to help him, but he refused to ask his mother for help. This further complicates the situation, the doctor explained with a low and worried voice. Diana was stunned by the revelation. She did not ask her mother for help, but why does that not make sense? She's putting her life at risk out of pride. I can't let this happen. Someone has to intervene, she asked herself, trying to understand the logic behind Lore's decision. The perplexity soon turned into determination. Would she tell the truth? Although Julieta was fired for it, however, upon hearing Diana's response, the doctor understood the situation. When they called me to attend to my patient, I asked for some information about her state of health and if she had changed her mind. However, I discovered from a medical colleague that she, Lorenzo's mother, is hospitalized in this same hospital, still recovering from surgery. Maybe she can help, he said. With that information, Diana immediately went to Julieta's room when she found her awake. He quickly explained the situation. Mrs. Julieta, his son Lorenzo is in the hospital and he fainted and is seriously ill and needs a compatible donor. He didn't want to ask for your help, but we can't wait any longer. Please, you need to help him, he said with a voice full of Julieta still recovering of her own surgery. She was devastated upon hearing the news. My son, I will not let anything happen to him. I will do whatever it takes to help him. Please take me to him, she said with her voice shaking with worry. The doctor, at Diana's request, he entered the room and explained the seriousness of the situation. Mrs. Julieta, we need your help to save Lorenzo. However, I must warn that due to his state of health and the surgery he recently had, there is a great risk involved. He may not survive the procedure. If he decides help your son, we need you to sign a responsibility form aware of the risks involved, said the doctor, looking her in the eyes. Julieta did not hesitate. I will do whatever is necessary to save my son. Please prepare everything. He will help me needs and I will be there for him, she said with unwavering in her voice. She signed the liability form aware of the risks, but determined to give Lorenzo the chance at life he needed, even if it means sacrificing my own life. I will do it for him. While preparations were being made for the surgery, Julieta had a moment of introspection. If this is the last thing I do, so be it. I want him to know that I always loved him, although from a distance. I hope that one day he understands the sacrifices I made for him, she thought. Feeling the peace of a decision made with the heart, the tension in the hospital was palpable, and Diana, watching from afar, could not help but feel the responsibility of her actions. I did what I had to do. I hope Lorenzo understands this one day. Now, we can only wait and pray that everything goes well, she thought, feeling a mixture of relief and apprehension. Juliet was taken to the surgery room, ready to face whatever came. Please take good care of my son. He deserves a chance to live, and I will do anything to give him. That's what she said to the doctors before being given. While Julieta was in the surgery room, Lorenzo remained unconscious, oblivious to the sacrifice his mother was about to make for him. Their lives now depended on a delicate balance of hope and medical skill that everything turns out well, thought Diana, anxiously awaiting any news. Lorenzo and Julieta were prepared for surgery in adjacent rooms. The hospital was in a state of controlled agitation, with doctors and nurses working frantically to ensure that everything was ready for the delicate procedure. The lives of mother and son were in the hands of the medical team, and every second counted. Please, let everything go well, thought Diana, watching from afar and feeling the air in the air. The surgery began simultaneously for both of them. Julieta, still weak from her previous operation, she was sedated and prepared for the donation. The doctors knew that she was risking everything to save Lorenzo, and the pressure was enormous. We have to be extremely careful. She is very fragile, but we cannot fail, the head surgeon murmured to his team. Meanwhile, Lorenzo was in critical condition, and the doctors were working quickly to stabilize him and begin the procedure that could save his life. Time is of the essence. We need to make sure he survives until we can complete the transfusion, said one of the doctors, adjusting the equipment. The surgery room was filled with a tense silence, broken only by the rhythmic sounds of the heart monitors and life support machines during the operation. Surgery. There was a critical moment when Lorenzo could hardly resist. His heart stopped briefly, and the doctors went into frantic action to revive him. Code Blue, we need a defibrillator now. Patient in critical condition, shouted one of the doctors as the team moved quickly to save his life. Let's go, Lorenzo, don't leave us now, the surgeon thought, sweating with tension. The seconds seemed like hours while the doctors worked to finally revive Lorenzo. After a series of shocks, the cardiac monitor showed a sign of life. He has returned. Continue with the procedure. We need to finish this and make sure he is stable, the surgeon ordered. Relieved but still very focused, Julieta, although Dada seemed to be fighting alongside her son, the doctors felt the overwhelming responsibility of ensuring that they both came out alive of this operation. She is giving her all to save him. We cannot fail her, thought one of the nurses while monitoring Julieta's vital signs. The surgery continued with extreme caution and precision. After hours of hard and concentrated work, the doctors managed to complete the procedure on Lorenzo. We finished here now. We need to monitor him closely. He has survived, but his state of health is very fragile. We are going to transfer him to the ECU and keep him under constant observation, said the exhausted head surgeon, but relieved. Julieta was also stabilized after the donation. Despite her weakened condition, she managed to resist the operation. She is stronger than we imagined. Now it is a question of time and intensive care to see how both react, commented the doctor who was treating her. Lorenzo was taken to the ICU, where he was connected to a series of machines that monitor every aspect of his recovery. Diana, who had anxiously awaited news, was informed about the EO of the surgery, but also about Lorenzo's continued fragility. He has survived, but is not yet out of danger. The next few days will be crucial for his recovery, the doctor told Diana. While Lorenzo was unconscious in the ICU, his body was fighting to recover from the trauma of surgery. Every breath was a battle, and every heartbeat a victory. You have managed to survive this, but there is still a long road ahead. I hope you understand what your mother did for you, thought Diana, looking at him through the glass. The ICU. Julieta, in her own room, was also under intensive care. The donation had been a huge effort for her already weakened body, and she was exhausted, but alive. I hope he is well. I did what I could, and now alone I can hope and pray that he recovers, he thought as the anesthesia began to wear off. The tension in the hospital remained high as the medical team monitored both patients closely. Each day brought new challenges, but the first major obstacle had been overcome. Lorenzo had survived surgery, but the fight for her recovery was just beginning. However, nothing prepared Julieta for what would happen. The days after the surgery were tormenting. Lorenzo did not wake up after the surgery, and now he was in a coma, connected to several machines that monitor his vital functions. Julieta, still recovering from her own surgery, spent most of her time next to him sitting in an uncomfortable chair holding her son's hand. I can't give up on you. Lorenzo, please fight, she thought with tears. In the eyes feeling the weight of responsibility and maternal love, Julieta spent hours reciting stories for Lorenzo, stories that she wished she had lived with him during her childhood. Lorenzo, if you had lived with me in the childhood, we would have walked in the park every Sunday. We would have eaten ice cream and played until the sun set. I would have taught you to ride a bike and swim. It would have been my pride and joy. I began with the soft voice and full of emotion. Every story that Julieta told, it was a desperate attempt to create a bond that had been interrupted many years before. He talked about moments they never had, as if he believed that somehow it could reach him. In his unconscious state, you would have made friends at school, and I would have attended all your presentations. I would have been there at all the important moments of your life. If I could. I continued, gently squeezing his hand. The days turned into weeks, and Julieta never left Lorenzo's side. She prayed fervently for a miracle, asking, may God give her a second chance to be the mother she always wanted to be. Please, God, don't take my son away from me. I beg you. Give him the strength to wake up. I want to take care of him, be by his side. He deserves a chance to live. The doctors whispered, their voices filled with emotion. Although they were skeptical about Lorenzo's recovery, they noted Julieta's tireless dedication. She did not give up on him, even knowing that the probabilities were small. It is impressive how strong a mother's love can be, commented an admiring nurse. Julieta, in one of her rare moments of rest, observed Lorenzo. Sincerely, any small movement, any sign that he could be improving, was a reason for Esperanza. She will have heard something of what I said. She knows of some kind. So I'm here, I thought, looking for any sign of improvement. One day, while I was telling a story about how I would have taught Lorenzo to fish, Julieta noticed something different. There was a slight movement in Lorenzo's fingers. Must it have been my imagination? She asked herself with her heart racing. Lorenzo, are you there? Can you hear me? He gently squeezed her hand, waiting for a response. The following days brought small signs of recovery. Lorenzo began to move his fingers more frequently, and there were times when his eyelids trembled slightly. Struggling, he can hear you, Juliet. Keep talking to him. It seems like he's making a difference, encouraged one of the nurses. Perceiving the signs, Juliet felt a renewal of hope. You're coming back to me, son. I knew you were strong. I'll be here waiting for you. Every step of the way, I thought, as I told more stories and shared memories that never had the opportunity to create. Every little movement of Lorenzo fed Julieta's therapy. She knew the road would be long and difficult, but hope now shone in her eyes. You will wake up, Lorenzo. I believe in you. We will get through this together, son. I will never give up on you, he said with a voice full of emotion. As the days passed, Lorenzo continued to show signs of recovery, bringing new hope to everyone around him. The constant presence and Julieta's stories seemed to be reaching the flame of hope. We are getting there, Lorenzo. I know you can do it, thought Julieta, determined not to give up. Finally, Julieta began to realize that Lorenzo really he was fighting to get back. Every movement, every little sign was proof that he wasn't ready to give up. You're strong, Lorenzo. We're going to get through this together. I believe in you, son, he whispered, feeling hope growing every day. Julieta was next to Lorenzo, holding his hand. As he began to show signs of recovery, she was exhausted, but her heart was full of hope and love. One day, Lorenzo finally opened his eyes, still weak but conscious. Julieta was at his side, holding her. She held her hand tightly, waited for the doctors to check that everything was fine, waited for her son to get his bearings, and as soon as she could, she began to say everything she needed to say. Lorenzo, my son, there are so many things I need to tell you, she said, her voice filled with emotion. Lorenzo looked at her, confused, but also eager to hear what she had to say. Julieta took a deep breath and began to tell her story. When you were a child, she knew that there was a history of hereditary diseases in our family. Relatives died before me, and I knew that you had a great chance of inheriting this disease. She began with a trembling voice. I saw my mother die because we couldn't pay for the treatment, and I discovered that other people, those from wealthier families, could survive this disease thanks to her financial conditions. The same day I lost my mother to this illness, I discovered that I was pregnant with you, she said. Lorenzo listened in silence to her mixed emotions of pain and understanding. Julieta continued, I knew that if you stayed with me, I couldn't give you the treatment you needed, so I made the hardest decision of my life. I took you to a rich and kind family who could take care of you. And make sure you had a chance to survive. I did a lot of research and thought about a family that would give you all the love that I would give you, but that I had the ability to take care of you when you got sick," she explained. Julieta paused, tears rolling down her face. "During all these years, I always followed your growth. Without you knowing, I saw you graduate hidden among the audience at the ceremony. I saw you celebrate when you learned to ride a bicycle for the first time. I also saw you when you broke your leg that same day, and I almost died of grief when you opened your company. I was the first customer that he bought in your store over the phone. Without you knowing, I must have always achieved so much success. I was there, although from a distance, encouraging you, loving you," he said, squeezing Lorenzo's hand. "Every achievement of yours was a joy for me, even if I couldn't sharing those moments with you." Lorenzo, with his eyes full of tears, finally understood his mother's sacrifice. "You did all this for me? You walked away to save me?" he asked, his voice broken by emotion. "I didn't know, Mom. I didn't know how much you sacrificed for me," he said, understanding the situation. "Julieta." He felt the tears mixing with a sad smile. "Yes, my son, I would do everything again to make sure you had a chance to live. I love you more than anything, and I will always love you," he said, hugging Lorenzo with strength. "I hope you can forgive me for having made that decision when you lost your parents. I knew that they would leave you an inheritance large enough so that you could pay for your treatment, but when I tried to talk to you, you did not want to listen to me. I wanted to tell you much before. I always saw you, Lorenzo, even when you didn't always see me. I was there," she said, her voice heavy. Lorenzo, feeling the weight of his mother's love and sacrifice, hugged her back, crying with her. "I forgive you, Mom. Thank you for everything. What did you do for me? I finally understand how much you love me, and I am eternally grateful for that. I paid for your treatment. I still felt anger and resentment without understanding how much you sacrificed for me to survive, but I did it because it was the right thing to do. I am glad I made that decision, not because you saved me, but for having the opportunity to know the whole truth," said Lorenzo with a heavy voice. They cried and hugged each other, finally understanding and accepting the other's sacrifice. The hospital room for a moment became a place of reconciliation and unconditional love. The pain of the past was replaced by a new hope for the future, where mother and son could finally reconnect and begin to heal the wounds left by the years of separation. Years after that difficult period in the hospital, Lorenzo, now healthy and prosperous, lived in peace with his mother Julieta. One sunny afternoon, they were sitting in the garden of Lorenzo's house, surrounded by flowers and fruit trees, enjoying the tranquility that Lorenzo had conquered. "It seems like it was yesterday when we were in the hospital," said Julieta, looking lovingly at her son. "Yes, Mom. Every moment we have together is a gift. I am eternally grateful for everything you did for me," Lorenzo answered, holding her hand firmly. Julieta smiled, her eyes shining with love. "I would do it all over again without hesitation. Seeing you happy and healthy is the greatest reward," she said with a look full of affection towards her son as they watched the garden. Lorenzo felt a deep sense of peace. "Our story, Mom, is proof of that love can overcome anything, even pain and resentment," he said emotionally. Julieta nodded. "Life gave us a second chance, and we are taking advantage of every second. Life gives us opportunities to start over and love everyone, even after our losses," she said. The sun sets. Lorenzo's son, who was playing in the garden, smiled at his grandmother, who could barely contain the happiness of living with her grandson and seeing him grow up close, as she always wanted to do with her son Lorenzo. And Julieta, side by side, knew that they had overcome the shadows of the past with love and determination. They rebuilt a life full of joy and gratitude, ready to face anything together. If you liked this story, we invite you to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to continue bringing exciting stories almost every day. Don't miss the next amazing narrative that is about to appear on your screen. We greatly appreciate having you here with us. Now you can click on the links that are appearing on the screen right now. We have a special selection just for you, full of valuable stories and guaranteed entertainment. See you there.